What a place to work. So it's 9 o'clock Sunday the 14th of May, and I've just got in. I'm just lit the furnace. So I've got to say, it's quite nice to just come in, light the furnace. I actually came in on, what was it, Friday, I think, and just fill the pot up, because it's quite noisy, and we're on a farm and there's guests here, so I didn't really want to be clattering around first thing on a Sunday morning. So everything's in there, ready to go, just have to turn it on, and off we go. So you may wonder what I'm doing at the moment. These beer bottles, and next door, right next door to us, a little cottage, and a lady came out this morning just as to lit the furnace, said, "Excuse me, do you know where I can recycle bottles?" And I'm after green glass at the moment, and I was worried I didn't have enough green glass, so I said, "Yeah, I'll have them." So I looked in the bag, and of course there were loads of green bottles, beer bottles, and these carver bottles are fantastic because they're really thick. It's a good colour, that. And I know this won't give me much glass, it's wafer thin, but it's free. Now, about 10 years ago, I did this, well, 2012 I did this, mixing bottles and so on, and working with bottles. And people were kind of questioning, why are you doing that? You can just buy your cullet, wouldn't it be easier? Well, when cullet was £600 a tonne, I suppose they've got a point, but now cullet, that's the glass that we buy, the art glass is really soft, costs £3,200 a tonne delivered. And of course that goes on a ship, and then from the ship it goes in a truck, and from the truck it goes to the glassworks. So now not only is it environmentally sustainable to upcycle, because I'm not just recycling this, I'm upcycling it, I'm going to make it better. Now that it's not just a environmental concern, it's now financially viable for me to do this, because for £3,200, if I spend maybe 3 days working on my cullet, collecting stuff, it's now financially viable for me to do this, which means it's also financially viable for me to recycle end-of-life building glass, and that's the holy grail of recycling. End-of-life building glass doesn't get recycled. These companies, window glass for instance, optically perfect when it comes out, they put 2 tons of CO2 into the atmosphere for every 3 tons of glass they make from raw ingredients. So we need to find a way of actually using that. Now, if it's £3,200 a tonne, it's financially viable for me to go and scurry around collecting that window glass and sorting it into basically soda lime glass, lead crystal, which is really expensive, which is really fantastic glass, and also the borosilica, which really spoils everything. I can tell it's borosilica in 3 different measurable ways. So it's definitely worth me doing this, financially as well as sustainably, and that's where that circular economy comes in. I'm getting everything from just the local area. It's a regional circular economy. I'm on a farm, so I can harvest the fluxes I need to bring down the melting temperatures and to make this glass into high quality, high value glass. I can get my energy from here, really. If we think about it, biomethane really should be captured. It's not impossible, in fact it's perfectly possible. We just need to sort it out and get it done, so we can run on biomethane and solar concentrated power, solar concentrated energy. And we're actually developing those solar concentrators as well. If it doesn't exist, let's create it. It's not me, it's actually Dr. Katie Shanks of Exeter University Environment and Sustainability Institute. We're actually developing it in partnership in terms of those solar concentrators. So, where am I? Yeah, it's now financially viable for me to do this, as well as great for the environment. And our little kind of our little circular economy becomes so much more important, so much significant. If it's not worth the big companies recycling end-of-life building glass, but it is worth small companies doing it. So why don't we have loads of small companies based on farms so that we can actually use energy from the farm itself? We could become methane recapture systems. If you put a small CO2 capture system on my furnace, and which we have separated the flue gases from the gases from the glass, what you're going to get from those combustion gases, if you actually think about it, is water. It's the only thing that's going to come out, and CO2 that we can capture, put into bottles, and sell to the local brewery. Anyway, that's enough from me. I'm sure I'll be boring you about this as we go on. So it's up to temperature. That's it, 1200 degrees. It's got hopefully kind of a refining temperature. It's about 45 degrees over its working temperature. And now's the point to see if there's any hot spots around. This is my thermocouple, and as you can see, I can put my fingers right on the back of that, so there's no danger of that overheating. And the other thing I want to do is use the back of my hand first, just to check, and yeah, I can put my hand right on that, and as you can see, there is absolutely nothing wrong with this burner. It's cool here actually, and I'd say warm there, but I can put my fingers on that, make good contact with that while it's running at 1200 degrees. So I've done a good job with this block, this castable block there. Very pleased with that. It's overfiring a little bit, so I'll turn my low fire down. Low fire is just creeping up a little bit, so as I tweak that down, I'll end up with a nice, just purring, ticking over furnace, which is not costing too much at all. Without hitting the back wall, but it is really high. That's it. Yeah. Oh, look at that. That's brilliant.
Yeah. Double whammy.
So, if you'd just like to introduce yourselves.
Hi, I'm Laura. Ian. And we're just holding here 2 pots, and this one's got crystal glass in it. And you can see how crystal clear it is, kind of in the name, isn't it? Which has been there for quite a number of years. And then we were just having a debate about whether or not this is it just got cobalt and it's the kind of like end of everything glass, or whether or not it's some of the seaweed glass that Ian made a long time ago.
Brilliant. So that's lead crystal. That could be lead crystal with cobalt, or it could be the seaweed glass. I'm going to have to go through the old pots and have a look. But essentially, you have a pot for each glass.
Yeah. Right, and then we're going to do slivers.
We've had a successful melt when it comes to beer bottles, and however the temperature we needed to achieve was still 1300 degrees, which is way above what I want. I need to bring it down to about 1100 degrees, which we can do, definitely. But we're almost at the stage now where we can go one step further and start working with end-of-life building glass and chemically alter that to bring down the melting temperature and make it clear and so on. I'm just going to turn my screen around. So today I've had two volunteers come in, Laura and Ian, and they have actually redesigned the furnace. We've got an issue where I think cold air is coming through the top there and blowing everything into the corner. So we can put a hood above the whole thing, we can put a fan there, we can do all sorts. But what we've done initially is we've changed the flue. We've designed it so that the flue gases are coming out here at an angle. You can see the angle that's coming out. So it's not going to hit me as I'm gathering, and it's going to come to the center of this room and then hopefully be taken away from the extraction up there. There's other things I can do as well, but we shouldn't be running at 1300. It's far too high. We can bring that down to 1100. We won't have that problem. We also need to clad the inside of this workshop because it's too noisy. We've got outside, we've got people staying in these cottages and so on, and they don't want to be listening to something like a hot air balloon right next to them. So we're going to do that. Thanks to Ian and Laura, they've actually done lots of work in here, and you can see I've got a storeroom that actually looks like a storeroom now. So just a recap of what we've done so far. This is the bottle glass. This was basically as soon as about an hour after put the stuff in, to be honest, and you can see all the bubbles in there. What happens is the longer it's in, it refines. So if you leave it overnight, it'll be perfect. There won't be any bubbles at all. Richard and I were working it, and this is what we had after about an hour and a half, maybe 2 hours. You can see the bubbles, there's less of them and they're really small. If you leave it overnight, you'll get this kind of quality where there's no bubbles, and you get really good quality glass out of the little furnace we built. And it refines overnight, so I'm not worried about bubbles. What I am excited about is that we can take waste glass and we can achieve the blue glass here with the landfill from a glass studio. And I'm very pleased that our first melt, we ended up with clear glass from our waste glass as well. So I can take that glass and then refine it so that there's no colour in it. So this is so close now. This is soda lime glass. But you can see it actually blows quite well. We've made it more like a studio glass. By bringing down the melting temperature, it's still too high. It's still 1300 degrees. I need to get it down to about 1080 to 1100 degrees. So a little bit more work on that. But we're ready now to experiment with end-of-life building glass to bring that temperature right down and make it very soft. I mean, it's going to cost, what, between £3,200 and £4,000 a tonne to buy in our glass. So why not make it out of junk? Why not make it out of waste glass? And if we can start to use end-of-life building glass, that would be incredible. And eventually, of course, we'll be able to make this kind of thing. This is something I made ages ago with the furnace. It's unrefined, so there's loads of bubbles in there. You can see how many bubbles there are. There's loads of them, but it's still a beautiful object, and made as it would have been, I suppose, way back in the 16th, 17th century. So we'll be making some kind of more elaborate work as well to sell as we go on. So that's it for me for now. Look out for next month, and hopefully we'll have some really exciting news for you. Here's a question. I just thought of something. I've got a friend who is a metal basher. He does forge work. I'm going to bend this into a curve. I need this, and what I'm doing is I'm just heating it up as I would normally, and there's my metal there that I'm just hitting with a hammer over the top of this to get it the right shape. So my question is, can I get a forge worker just working alongside me? Would this actually be of any use to a forge worker to produce work at the same time as I'm producing mine, to cut down on energy costs?